So I know you're into preparedness on some levels. What got you into the whole preparedness gig, thought process,
Sure.
lifestyle, whatever you want to, however you want to phrase that?
Any place. Yeah, that was ingrained since I was a kid. My dad was, always had his gun off duty, and we knew that bad people did bad things out there, and sometimes good people did things that were not great. But I knew, even just as a kid, there really wasn't an off duty for survival. So if you want to be prepared and you want to survive, especially against things like violence, or even just emergencies, you have to put a little bit of effort into the beforehand to make the event, less of an emergency. So started way back when I was a kid, and then just living a life of, I spent a decade in the military and then a couple of years as a street patrol officer in law enforcement. And yeah, it just every single day swimming into that environment of you can't not be prepared in that world, or if you are, and especially if you're likely to face violence or emergencies, you're not going to last very long. So that was very much ingrained.
Nice. What concerns you most right now with what's happening in the world? These are kind of like two standard questions I always ask people. What's your, if there's your, and I know, it's like there's so much going on, and I've talked about it on other episodes where, 5 years ago or so, whatever it was, people worried about like, when's the asteroid? When's the super volcano going to hit? When's this major disaster going to strike and we're all going to be wiped out? And now I did a survey a couple months ago, and there's like natural disasters were really low on the list of what people are worried about, right? So it's interesting watching that shift in the preparedness community for what people's big bugaboos are. What do you think what concerns you most with what's going on in the world right now?
That is an easy one to answer. There is only one answer at the top of my head for that one, and that's that I feel like the way the modern American life, and other places around the globe too, the way that life is going, food quality is going down, food portion sizes are going down, prices are going up, just the cost of goods is going up, the quality is going down across the board. It's harder to find employment. Wages are going down, cost of living is going up, availability to things like loans and credit going down, cost of everything going up. So I feel like we're just in a very big, very long-term squeeze, especially for the lower and middle classes. And I feel like I can't dump money into pallets of MREs if I also can't pay my bills every month. So I think one of the biggest things people, and this is just my personal experience, I think one of the biggest things you can do is to take control of your income and take control of, I really feel like a lot of employers will take more of your liberty than any government or any foreign government, domestic or foreign government will. They tell you where to go, when to be there. And if you want to be somewhere else, you have to ask permission, and they can deny that. They often limit how much money you can make. And so for me, one of my big answers to being better prepared and just living a better life was to get out of the employment game and just to run my own company, which gives me so much of my freedom back. And it's an awful lot of work, but being an employee is often an awful lot of work too. So I feel like that's kind of, those scales are even. So the biggest concern for me was, even if you are an employee, if we all lived from 2019 until today, we've seen that just because you have a long work history at a company doesn't mean you're going to stay there tomorrow. In 2019, 2020, I watched almost half of the huge company that I work for get laid off just with a snap of a finger. So I will never fire myself, that's for sure. And I like the ability to choose where I go and what I do and what projects I work on, with which people I do, which people I don't work with is important too. So just trying to do better every day. And I like it. I really like what I do. And besides taxes and the administrative side of the business, everything I do is something I want to do, I choose to do, and I have a say in how it goes. Yeah. So I just, I think this is the best possible spot that I could be in today. as far as the past versions of me, we're trying to work towards this moment.
Yeah. Well, I think that's, it's one of the things I look at when it comes to the preparedness side of the house, right? When I was working on the early drafts of my book that's coming out, it was, I had two goals of preparedness, right? To survive and to minimize unwanted struggle. Like that's the goal. But then I started really chewing on it as I was going through it. And I was like, well, those are two goals. Those are good goals. But what does that lead to, right? Like, why are you doing that? I mean, if you're surviving and just to have a miserable life, I'm not saying to, go give up on life, but your goal is always to make life better, right? To have a more fulfilling life, I think, and to have those moments where we say, hey, I'm really glad, like today was a really good day, and you feel good about it. And you mentioned the corporate America thing. I know when we talked yesterday, we talked a little bit about this. When I was doing the diplomatic security program, I started at the bottom and I just kept going, oh, I need to work my way up this thing because there's improvements that can happen. This makes sense. And I got to the top of the program. I had thousands of people underneath me. I was working in DC, and one of my first days into the office, not my first days, probably within about 6 months of coming there, a new CEO came on board, a new company president, and they wanted to sell the company. And so in order for them to look better and to be able to make money, they fired like 80 people one day. A bunch of my staff got laid off. And it was like, and they just didn't care. And I remember going, wow, that was just, you hear about it, but then when you see it and you're exposed to it, it's wild. So I like what you do. I'm doing it now. I would, with my resume, doing what I used to, if I want to go back into doing what I used to do, I was making $200,000+ a year. So I could have a nice life, very easily. But what did I do? I was in the office 60 hours, 70 hours a week. I would go in on Sundays and work 6 or 8 hours on a Sunday just because that's when I could have quiet time without having to help support my staff, and I could get stuff done. And it wasn't a life, so I was grinding. I had great money, but like, what was I doing with it? I did nothing. Like it was terrible. So no, I'm fully on board with, I think that's such a key aspect of preparedness. And it's kind of different than what a lot of people do in preparedness. A lot of people prepare, like you mentioned, the MREs. A lot of people, when we prepare to suck. I'm just gonna, and MREs are great. They have their role, right? There's an application for those. People go and they buy MREs thinking that's, that's planning to suck, right? Like you mentioned food earlier, planning to eat well and to eat as healthy as possible. And a good buddy of mine, Josh Burmeister, has been on the show. I think he was on the show last month. He has a really good way of looking at it that you really don't hear in the preparedness world. It's trying to maintain a normal life as much as possible rather than, if you eat fresh food now, rather than going and saying, oh, I'm just going to switch to canned food and MREs, it's maintaining that normal life, being as healthy as possible, living your best possible life, I think is what the goal of all this should be.
Yeah, I'm looking out my window. I can see my greenhouse there. I got, better than MREs growing out of the ground right now. So yeah. I think it's part of the journey, and I think it's important to go, oh no, it'd be nice to have stored food. Yes, sure. I don't disagree with that.
No.
And then I think later on in the journey that becomes, what if we can move the bar back a little bit so that maybe we're not buying MREs, we're producing food, I think is a great way to look at it. Just again, moving a little bit more towards that knife's edge of capability.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned yesterday Jack Spirko's lifestyle design. Can you go over that again?
Oh, yeah, I'd love to. Life-changing for me. The shortest version I can do, normal design is you get your career and your employer tells you where to go, when to go, and wherever that employment requires you to be, you can live within a radius of that. And whatever days you're working, those hours that you're at work, well, whatever's left you get to spend doing what you want. And then whatever days you're not working, you get to do what you want on those days. Whatever income they offer you, you can usually make that income, but not usually much more than that. And if you want to do something different, you have to ask permission, and you're likely to get denied. So lifestyle design is, instead of having the job and then designing whatever's left for your life, with self-employment, you can say, ooh, maybe I love traveling. So for my business, I'll say I can provide product and or service to you, and I'll travel to you because I love traveling. So you base your business around your little traveling RV, and you make yourself mobile, and you do that if you like it. But if you hate traveling and you love hanging out with your dog at your workshop with your music and just fiddling with stuff, then you can get a brick and mortar business, and you can say, we don't leave this store 5, 6, 7 days a week. We're here. We'll be here. We don't travel. And you can make business decisions that, well, if there's business that needs to happen over there, I'm not taking that business. I'll either adjust and get that business here, or I'll take someone else's business that can come here. So you get to design your lifestyle the way you want, because your business is the vehicle and you're in charge of that vehicle. So that's what I've been doing for the last maybe 5, 6 years now. And it's been incredibly rewarding. So everybody out there has a bad boss. Everybody out there has coworkers they don't like. So I also now can fire people. I can fire customers. I can fire collaborators. I can fire business partners, and I can go, this isn't working. Best of luck. I'm going to do business another way somewhere else. But I can also pick up and I can maintain relationships where those are appropriate. And I can say, I love working with this person. I choose to work with this person. And my life is so much more enriched because every time I pick up the phone or every time I get a text message from someone I either work with or I'm friends with, it's a person that I choose to keep in my circles. And almost every single employee and supervisor out there, you're dealing every single day of the week with some people that you just don't want to deal with.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, even that, incredibly life-changing. And just, I think just the alleviation of that stress of wearing what I want, going where I want, when I want, at whatever pace I want. Yes, my income will reflect it. If I'm lazy for a week or two and I'm not making a lot of sales, it will reflect, my income statement will show that. But the stress of, man, I'm really going to hammer these things out for the next week, 2 weeks, whatever. And then going, man, I am not going to do a single thing at all for work today. I feel like that's so much more of a human experience. Like what you said, living a normal life. I think whatever, way back whenever humans were plopped down on the earth, I think it was, if you want to gather more berries and kill more animals, you go do that. If you're caught up and you want to take a day off, you do that. But I think it's the asking for permission part for me that has been life-changing.
Yeah, I think that's great. It's, I think that goes into managing your expectations and taking some initiative. It's one of the things that I believe in. I tell people all the time is we get it wrong, right? I feel we get it wrong in the US, and maybe this is other parts of the world, but we say work-life balance. Well, that's some mental propaganda we're being fed. It should be life-work balance. Prioritize your life, not your work. Now, if your work is something you enjoy going in, and grinding at some company, okay, that's cool. That's your decision. You're establishing your priorities and you're managing your expectations. It's like, I don't make anywhere near the money I used to make, but I'm happy, right? Like and that's a huge thing every day. I don't wake up and even when it comes to, even the preparedness side, I think back when I was grinding and doing the corporate America thing, I think that, I was more doom and gloomy. I was more, the world sucks kind of stuff. Right. Cause it was just, I was sucking. I was mentally in this habit trail, this wheel running around like a rat that, it would impact the rest of my life. Now, I work on this every day. Like there's maybe once in a while once every 2 weeks, I'll take a day off, but there's days where I put 4 or 5 hours in and I'm like, you know what? I'm done. I'm going outside, going for a hike, whatever, and so,
yeah,
Again, I understand that, hey, people have considerations. They want insurance. They have different things that they have to do. And so they take those jobs. But I think Spirko and you are right, that you got to look at your lifestyle and figure out, what do I want? What can I get away with? Because loyalty is not there in corporate America. And
Mhm.
so, and this is a huge, sometimes it's like, well, this isn't really traditional preparedness, but I think it really is preparedness, right?
Yeah.
You're going back to all that stuff you do to live a good life.
Yeah, it's the taking control, because I think a lot of people that do the pallets of MREs, and whatever that metaphor is, I think that's you choosing to prepare for in case something happens. I feel like that's a decision that you're acknowledging that you're not in control, if that's your preparedness method.
Mhm.
And for me, it was, again, moving a little bit more towards the knife's edge, which was, well, why don't I take control? And I'm not going to lay myself off. I am not going to fire myself. So that little chunk of that pallet of MREs, I don't need to worry about, because if a company fires you, you're in emergency mode right away and you have
Right.
nothing. You have no income. Most people are only a one employment person, or most people only work for one employer. For me, even if some bureaucrat in the government clicks a button and my whole industry is shut down tomorrow, I'm still not fired. I can pivot and I can do something different with my business, and I'm still making an income, and I'm still in control of my ship, so to speak. I'm not kicked off of someone else's ship swimming in the water, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think that preparedness could be taking control of more systems instead of preparing for what to do after someone kicks you out of their system. And I think that that's a big level up in preparedness, is moving a little bit to one direction on that timeline.
You're making yourself more resilient,
Oh yeah, incredibly.
and that's what it's about, being able to weather the storm. And not every storm is, the impending whatever craziness we may have coming down the road or whatever. That's the potential for a societal meltdown. That's your, well, I'm sure you're in the military. That's your 300-meter target, right? That's your far target. May happen, doesn't pop up all the time. But that 50-meter target, the one that's right there that, is in front of you, that's the biggest threat. That's that job loss. That's you know, things have gone sideways. I got sick, something happened. My car engine blew up, or, my home was robbed, whatever that is. And I think that's where you're getting at with being that more resilient lifestyle design.
Yeah, it's incredibly enriching.
Yeah.